Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Altispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour to be a part of the program. It is a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. Send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. Joining me, my co-host, Mr. Steve Ovens. Welcome in, sir.
Good evening, Noah. Are you having some unseasonably warm weather today?
Yeah, it's 40 up. I just think North Dakota is one of the only places where it can be 12 below zero out one day and then 40 out the next day. So, like yesterday, I was running it's a long story longer. I needed to find a fold-up table and chairs. We weren't sure which vehicle they were in, and so I was searching through one company vehicle after the other, and I got to a point where I was trying to open up one of the pickup trucks, and I couldn't get the tailgate to open up because it was frozen shut. And I realized that I was on the verge of balancing like how much I'm going to look for this $50 table and frostbite, and then I bailed, and it just set. And then today I'm driving around and it's 40 below, it's 40 above, and everything is melting and it's back down to the pavement again. And c'est la vie. Global climate change, I guess.
Right. It was minus 17 here on Sunday. nice and balmy.
Here's the thing. You know what? The people ask, they're like, I can't believe you live there. Why would you live there where the air hurts your face? Here's the thing. As a nerd, I won't go outside. HVAC is terrible. It's very uncontrolled. Inside, it's great. It's all the same. That's where all the computers are. That's where all the wires are. That's where the internet is. So why would I? And it just seems like it's a great way to do that. The one thing that affects us in this part of the country, and I aspire to fix this, Steve, I am in the unique predicament in which I am privy to a conversation, and this is not a one-time occurrence. This happens all the time. I am privy to conversations in which businesses hire HVAC technicians to install a cold air kit on their air conditioner so that they can air condition an IT room in sub-zero temperatures, because it turns out air conditioners don't work that well when it's 14 below zero outside. And at the same time, it turns out IT rooms still get hot even in the winter. And there's a little engineering group that I'm a part of that is with some of the listeners of the show, and my father-in-law, who's a retired mechanical engineer, and I threw the question to him. I'm like, one of you smart people has to know how to build me a box that can take the cool, dry air that's coming in from outside and just, I don't know, like we just take like a little box and then put like a blower motor in it. I mean, there's got to be a way. And so they're going through like, well, you got to have a damper and you'd have to have some way to, shut off in the summer, and you'd have to have a way to, moisture and stuff and rodents, and there's all manner of reasons not to do it. And I get that. But I just feel like there's got to be a better way. And so someday, I don't know what that means.
It's called the window.
Yeah, but dust, right? So there was absolutely, this got me in some hot water. There was a business and they have a dedicated IT room air conditioner, and it went out. So I did the Steve thing. I'm like, it's 20 below out. This will be great. And I opened the window. Didn't think anything of it. Here's the problem. Anybody that's known me for 5 minutes knows that I have the memory of a goldfish. So I walked out of that IT room. Do you think I remembered that I had opened that window? Of course not. By the time I got downstairs, so fast forward 7 months later, there was, you would not believe the level of dirt and debris and leaves and all manner of things, bugs, all manner of things that I would have never thought would come through an open window, but absolutely come through. And like stuff you'd think like, the screen will filter. No, it does not. Let me tell you. And so there was way more debris and nastiness, and they were not thrilled with me. So window option is out. But I feel like there's a solution in here somewhere, Steve. I feel like the solution is based on some sort of HVAC box, some sort of air filter, and then some sort of blower motor, and then some sort of damper to like turn the thing on and off. And I feel like with just a little bit of ingenuity and creativity and yes, we can attitude, I feel like I can get there. I don't know how to do yet.
But you know what you do know how to do?
Hit the button to start
answer
feedback.
questions.
Yeah. Our first email comes in today from James. James writes in and says, "Hi, Noah and Steve. I enjoy listening to your show, and I find it's a great source of information. I have a number of questions for you. Number one, I'm looking for a monochrome laser printer, copier scanner for home use. It'll be mainly used for a Windows computer, and I'd like the device to be on the LAN. Wi-Fi is okay, but Ethernet is preferred. It would have to be a low volume printer. What would you recommend?" So I'm going to break James's question up into a number of portions here because he's got a few of them. So let's start with the printer thing. So Steve, you and I both have printers at our houses. What do you have? Do you like it?
I have 2 brother printers. So, and yep, I have 2 because I like them. So I suppose that speaks for itself. Both of them, I believe, are wireless. I can't remember. I prefer Ethernet as well. However, sometimes the compromise that you have to make is the ones with the Ethernet ports are more expensive or don't have what you're looking for. And so in my particular case, my most recent one was my wife does a lot of printing for curriculum and stuff like that. And so auto duplexing went to the top of the list.
What is auto duplexing for somebody who isn't printer?
It's when you print something that will print one side of the paper and then pull it back in and print on the other side. So page 1 is face up and page 2 is face down.
Okay. So auto duplexing is not there, or it turns out there's a problem if you want to print enough pages?
Well, no, we didn't. In my original printer, auto duplexing was not there. So
Okay.
we have 2 brother printers because the first one, while wonderful, and I do mean that, that's not sarcastic, didn't do auto duplexing. So what she would do is print pages, like all the odd pages, then go flip them over and hope that she did it the correct way and then print all the even pages. And she is such a gracious woman. She really didn't make a big fuss about it. I would just hear her complain about it to herself.
Sure.
Right. And like, okay, I have to fix this. Right. And so we ended up buying a printer that does auto duplexing. So now we have 2.
So we broke this down into a couple of answers for you. So the first is, if you're looking for let's start here. So one of the things that you asked for is, you said that you were looking for a printer, copier, scanner. So let me ask you this, Steve. Do you have a scanner? And if so, would you ever combine your scanner with a printer?
I have not had wonderful experiences with the combination. So I actually have 2 printers and a scanner on my desk.
In my opinion, this is what's known as spork syndrome. What is spork syndrome? Spork syndrome is, hey, it's a fork and it's also a spoon. And then the natural question that follows has to be, well, is it a good fork? To which the answer is, well, no. Was it a good spoon? Not really. Well, why do you like it then? Well, because it's both a fork and a spoon. See? Spork. That's how you get the name, you see. But it's not a great fork experience, nor is it a great spoon experience. It's just they're all combined together. And not 100% of the time, but almost 100% of the time, I find that you're making a compromise when you try to combine things. The other thing I don't like, the older I get, the more curmudgeon-y I get about this. I hate replacing stuff. I'm just tired of buying stuff. I don't mind spending a little bit more money, but I want to buy something one time and I want to be done with it. And so the more modular I can make something, the more it empowers me to replace one thing and get one thing that does one thing really, really, really well. And then if for any reason that breaks down, falls apart, whatever, I can replace it without ever impacting anything else. And so I would echo Steve's thoughts that I've just not had great luck. Typically, if you're looking at combo units, you find that you're getting a scanner and copier and printer all in one, but it's not a particularly great scanner, it's not a particularly great copier, and it's not a particularly great printer. If you really want a good multifunction device, you buy one of the big stand-up things, and they are absolutely worth their money. There's no question about them. They are quality devices. If you're a large office, or even like a medium office, and I mean, you talk about printing books or duplexing, that you can tell it, I want this book, and it'll do like page 1 and page 13, page 2 and page 12, and then it'll staple it and it will fold it, and then it will spit the completed booklet out. So that's absolutely a thing. And if you get into that level, it can be worth it. What I would tell you there's a reason that many businesses lease those machines. And the reason for that is they break frequently. And when they break, parts are expensive. And also you're paying there are people that they go to school to learn how to tear these massive, complex robots apart and fix them. And so for all of those reasons, I just stay away from it. I have a little scanner on my desk, and I have a printer. So in trueness to what you asked, we gave you a recommendation for an all-in-one. You should know that neither Steve or I own this device. You should know that if we're primarily basing it off of the general recommendation of Tay, who will have a link for you in the show notes to the episode he did with us with printing, and he goes into all of the reasons why he believes Brother is the most fantastic company to purchase printers from, something that I think Steve and I would generally share. But you're getting an all-in-one. So it's $208. It does scanning, it does copying, it does printing, and it's monochrome, and it does have wired Ethernet. So it checks all of your boxes. But just know that if you buy that, it isn't what Steve or I would buy. Up the list from that is a budget laser printer. So this is going to come in at about $170. And it is going to be a good, solid black and white printer. And I would tell you that we have this exact printer that is, it has Ethernet. We have this exact printer that we use inside of hotels at the little guest kiosks. And so it gets hammered on by lots of people. And so if they didn't hold up or they didn't last, I would know about it. And it's a good, solid printer. The next up the list is if I were buying a printer tomorrow, this is what would show up at my house. And it is a printer that we've purchased for clients in office environments. So it's typically the printer that sits next to Susie's desk so she can print, by herself, kind of a thing. It's Brother's professional line. It comes in at $309. It has 279 4.5-star reviews. And I would tell you that every one of those reviews are spot on. Again, wired Ethernet, works really well, 50 pages a minute, which you don't care about, but it's a really good printer. And it's, for what it's worth, it's what I would buy. And the last one is, I believe, Steve, the one that you have, right?
Yep.
So this is you asked for a black and white. And so this is in some ways, the furthest away from what you asked us for. It doesn't have a copier. It doesn't have a scanner, and it's not a black and white printer. It does have wired Ethernet, but it's for $344. And here's my argument. If I were buying a printer, I don't have a need to print in color. I don't care about color. It doesn't bother me if there's a thing that was originally in color and it comes out black and white. I just don't care. I don't really like hard copy though, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. However, I'm increasingly finding that the people in my life, that is to say my children, my wife, other people, look at it and they're like, why is this in black and white? I sent it in color. Okay, all right, I understand. Everybody wants it to be in color. So if I were to buy a color printer, this is the color printer I have purchased. In fact, when I pulled it up on Amazon, it says last purchase, January 2nd, 2025. And the things that I like about it are, it has a separate black and white toner. So for the me's of the world, I'm just going to choose to print in black and white because I don't care. And if you want to print in black and white, you can. But then if you ever need the ability to print in color, my gosh, it's costing you like $50 more. So I'd probably buy that one. And Steve, this is the one that in fact sits inside of your house.
Yep, it is. In general, I really like this one. We had a bit of trouble getting the auto duplexing to work. So in my experience, the PPD file, which gets generated when you install the driver, it gets generated by a script, and I went back and forth with support. I'll save you a long back and forth, but essentially there was some variance in the PPD file that got produced depending on what operating system you produced it on, and I don't know, the alignment of the stars or something. But I eventually did end up having to, I got a functioning one at one of the runs. I had to install like Ubuntu 1804 or something like that in a VM, and then it kicked out the right thing that one time. So It works. I save that PPD file off and I just kind of port that around instead of actually installing the package for it, and it's fine. Didn't have to worry about that for non-duplexing. Like when I just did the IPP protocol and plugged in the IP, worked flawlessly. Color, blah, blah, blah. It was only when I went to do the auto duplexing that the IPP didn't seem to understand that without the PPD file. So
when we were kind of tossing this around in the pre-show, we were going back and forth and talking about different experiences. And what we landed on, your mileage is going to vary, right, Steve? I mean, that's really the long and the short of it.
Yep.
So I have, there's things, other contenders that are worth considering, or at least maybe a better way to say this is other contenders that you're going to hear from people, and you should know what you're getting into, what you're getting, what you're not getting. You're going to hear, I think there was pretty much universal agreement that Lexar is probably a brand to stay away from. They're kind of the budget entry level, right?
Yep.
And then the other one that I think you're going to see a lot of is HP. And I would tell you that, again, mileage is going to vary on all this. So depending on your experience and the distro that you're using and all the things is going to affect it. But in general, a couple of principles for you. Principle number one is HP publishes their HP LAP driver, and they try to be good stewards of the open source community, and I want to compliment and commend them for that effort. At the same time, I have had way better luck not using it than I have using it, so take that for what it's worth. In my experience, the best way to get an HP printer to work under Linux, manually add the printer, manually choose, so you're manually going to add it. It's a local printer. If you said you're doing this on Windows, the same thing applies. So manually add the printer, I'll select it. It's locally connected. So as if you're plugging it in through a USB port, it's going to default to the LPT port. You're going to change that to HP Jet Director on Windows. In Cups, it'll be HP Jet Direct. In Windows, it'll be a standard TCP IP printer. And then give it the IP address. And then in Windows, you're going to use Windows updates. In Linux, you're going to scroll the absolutely massive list that is going to be in the printers list that is organized alphabetically. And you have to pay real close attention to the exact product name, because the desk jets are in a different place than the laser jets, and the MFPs are in a different place. LaserJet MFPs are in a different place than just the regular LaserJet. And so once you get past the 765-mile list of different printer models, you'll eventually arrive at one of two things. Either you'll find the exact model, in which case you should use it, no duh. If you don't find the exact list inside of Cups, then look for the most similar looking model. The most important is the first two letters. So for example, if you have an HP and I'm making numbers up here, 6050, look for an M6000 series, and that will be your best chance. Here's what I want to caution you on. When it goes wrong, it typically goes catastrophically wrong. That is to say, if you choose the wrong driver, there's a very real chance you're going to click print or print a test page, and you're going to get one page after the other to page 355 of just total gobbledygook. So be aware of that, and be hot and ready to pull on the paper tray to deprive it of paper until you can cancel the job and then try again with a different driver. But if you wind up with an HP printer, or Canon would fall in this category too, though your best shot is going to be to manually specify everything all the way through. Absolutely do not rely on the auto add thing. I wouldn't install HP's little software, that sort of thing. And then know that, again, your mileage is going to vary. That's the biggest thing to take away from it. There's going to be plenty of people that have had very poor experiences. In fact, both Steve and another gentleman that I used to host the Fedora podcast with gave up on HP printers because they just had such bad experiences. Is that a fair summation of things?
Yeah, they were a pretty big headache for me. So I gave up on them, wouldn't touch Lexar. You know, strangely, I didn't have the same experience with Canon, but maybe it was the mileage may vary based on the model number of printer that you buy.
Yep. I do have, let me see here. I wonder if I can do this quickly on the air, but I have, there's at least one Canon printer that I have purchased, and it's one of the ones that you can't just use it directly with with Linux. It doesn't have the exact model listed there, but if you are willing to look for similar ones, then you can make it work. So I'll if I can't find it quickly here, I will put it in the show notes. I'll have it available for you. You can find that at here we go. The image class LB Canon image class LBP 6230DW. So it's a wireless. No, I'm sorry. 62.2 CDW. Sorry, I read that wrong. So we've put these in a couple of offices. They're good. They're okay. It's a very well built printer. It comes in at $434, and do I think it's twice the Brother printer? Not even close. And oh, by the way, it is not as straightforward of an experience to set up. You will have to tweak and monkey and interpret a little bit. But if you wind up, for whatever reason, down the Canon route, I'll give you a recommendation for Canon as well. Now, if you follow Steve and I's advice, then that means that you are short a scanner. So, Steve, tell me about the Brother ADS 1200.
It's a little scanner that's just slightly wider than a piece of paper. It's probably a piece of paper and a half, maybe. But it sits on my desk and it folds up. So the document feeder folds down on top of itself. So it's nice and compact. It is less than the width of, it's about half the width of my Pixel 6 in terms of like how wide it is that it sits on the desk. So it's nice and compact. Does a really good job. I have had no complaints about it. It will scan both sides of the paper at the same time instead of coming back and forth or doing all of those sorts of things. And it has a like an ID scanner as well, like a section just for doing your cards. And so I found that particularly useful when I was immigrating here into the US.
And the thing that you like about it, Steve, is that when you get hard copy, to quote the Hackers movie, when somebody hands that to you, you can turn it into a digital thing, no problem. But then when you're not doing that, it's not occupying a ton of real estate on your desk.
Yes. Yep. And it's fairly quick. I mean, it's not enterprise grade in terms of like you probably can put in a stack of papers and go get a coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is and come back. It's not one of those things you're going to stare at while it does it because it's not super fast. But if you're not scanning a book, I've found it to be more than sufficient.
Okay. Hard to believe that was just one of James's questions. So the second one is, he says, when you rip your DVDs to use with Jellyfin, what's your process and what tools do you use? Do you rip to MP4? Do you rip to MKV or other? Do you use Handbrake? And if so, with what settings? I have plenty of storage space, so high quality rips are preferred. Steve, what is your process there?
So I use MKV, like make MKV, and I also use the MKV container. There is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of understanding the difference between a container and a codec.
Ooh, yes. Let's talk about containers versus codecs, because one really matters and one kind of doesn't.
So MKV is a container that can handle different codecs inside of it. It's just a container for your stuff, right? And so MP4 is both a container and a codec. So you can encode something as like the MPEG-4 standard into an MKV. It will confuse iPhones, but you can do it. So there is a difference. So MKV in and of itself is not a codec. You still have to have a codec inside of that.
The nice thing is there is a program that Chris Fisher turned me on to years ago called AvidMux. And the thing that I really like about AvidMux is it can do so much stuff without ever having to re-render the file. So, for example, you can recontainer from MKV to MP4 or MP4 to MKV. Is it safe to say, Steve, that if you don't have a preference, you want to stick with MKV because it is the open source container among us?
I mean, that's what I would stick with, right? Talking about broad compatibility, the MP4 is probably the safest one because if you're dealing with the fruit people,
yes,
they'll get an MKV and it doesn't matter if they actually support the format. It'll look at the file extension and be like, huh? And so I get lots of problems with that when I'm sending like MKVs around.
So you're not wrong about broad compatibility, and part of the problem is when you start, particularly if you start getting into specialized video players, right? Things that are designed for various different applications. Typically, it will expect MP4, and often it is confused by MKV. However, if you're doing this in your home and you're going to effectively, do like I'm going to play it on the TV, I'm going to watch it through Kodi, I'm going to watch it through Jellyfin, absolutely, just stick with MKV. That's going to be your best bet. So I'm really conflicted about this. When I used to purchase DVDs, I made it a point to always rip the DVDs as ISOs. And my rationale for that was I retained all of the menus. And this was a much bigger deal back in the early 2000s than it is today. But there were all sorts of like, the best example I have of this is the James Bond movies. Every James Bond movie, like the Tomorrow Never Dies, for example, just comes to my mind. The menu system itself was an expression of art. And so how you got to the special features or how you played it was cool. And so I'll admit there's a little nostalgia that came along with it that I just didn't want to give up. And so I ripped all the DVDs as ISOs. And I never really had a problem. The video players that I was using opened them and it played just fine and I retained all the menus and I liked them. However, there comes a point when everything else expects there to just be a video file. And so when you start getting into things like Jellyfin, where you're going to have like a database or a backend and stuff like that, either you're pushing the limits of what it can play, or even if you aren't pushing the limits, it just doesn't work as nice because then you do the thing and it plays the ads and then it goes to the menu system. And really what you want it to do is just kind of start the movie. And what really kind of changed my opinion about this was because I fought it for years, like a decade or more. And eventually I started getting into where I would watch what really super rich people put inside of their houses. And what I learned is that they would buy these hugely proprietary systems that you're locked in. Like you can't, it's not like you're ripping the movies. It's you buy all the movies from these systems and you better hope they never kick you out because then you lose how much money you have in these things. But when they would click on a video, it would just instantly play. There was no menu. And so like if a dumb example might be, if you watch Tomorrow Never Dies on Netflix, you're not going to have that experience. And so I kind of gave up on trying to capture the nostalgia of the early 2000s. And since then, obviously, it's gotten to the point where, optical media, you have to fight for it to get it. And then when you do get it, it's not an artistic expression. There's some basic thing that basically starts it. If there's a thing at all, a lot of times they just play. So I've kind of given up on it. And I too have gone the Make MKV route. The other thing is we were talking before the show, Make MKV is a really awesome software company. Like the people who make it do a really great job in A, supporting Linux as a first-class citizen. B, you really can get everything you need with just the free version. Like you don't actually have to give them money. If you're really hard up, you could make it work. I have chosen to, Steve, you said you bought a license and you bought it years ago and it's just been lifelong.
Yeah, I think that I bought my dad a copy as well for the same reason. Like my dad doesn't have a Blu-ray player or a whatever it is, the what's the next one? 4K, right? He doesn't have a 4K player. I have both. Like I've migrated with them because I like to have the best possible. If I'm going to buy it, which we have a giant stack, we buy Christmas movies by the half dozen or the dozen every year because my wife really likes Christmas movies.
There you go. Buy in bulk. Why not?
Absolutely. You know what? And some of them aren't bad. It's kind of fun when you well,
oh man.
It's like the people that really like horror movies, right? When you want to consume horror movies, you know that they're going to be like B or worse level horror movies, right? Because there just aren't that many high A or AAA or however movies are tiered, right?
Sure.
And it's the same thing with Christmas movies. You're not getting Brad Pitt every year. You're just not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So the Christmas movies that get kicked out, they're like the person from Full House from back in the day, or the person you saw in Eureka one time, or whatever it is. And so that's why I said some of them are okay. Some of them are just like, I can't believe I just watched that, and others are like, that's okay. We might watch it next year.
So I don't want to take the show too far down a tangent, but I just have to ask. Are the Christmas movies that you guys buy, are they like the Hallmark style Christmas movies?
Oh yeah, of course they are.
So
if you're going to buy Christmas movies, of course they are. Although we intermix them, like we watched Deck the Halls, which is like Danny DeVito movie. And so like every once in a while, I'm like, hey, I actually know the actor in this one.
So every movie that comes out that time of the, I shouldn't say every movie, that's branding with a broad brush, but I find way too many movies that follow the following plot. Okay. Girl is sick of her big city life and she just wants to go home to rediscover the real meaning of Christmas. And she goes back to her small, tiny little hometown, and there she rediscovers a romance with the boy that she went to high school with, that she completely forgot about, that wasn't going anywhere in life. And now he works as, in the hardware shop or in the thing or whatever, but they somehow recross paths and then they rekindle their love and together they rediscover the meaning of Christmas. And then cue happy ending or whatever. And it's like there's too many of them that follow the exact same freaking plot that it just makes me want to throw up. And I don't get like Christmas feels. I just get like, and
you've got the wrong opinion though. Like that's part of the problem.
I see. Give me the correct opinion.
Well, the let me rephrase that. It's not the wrong opinion. It's the wrong framing.
Oh,
when you go into it and you know what you're going to get, then you know what you're going to get.
I see.
And then you can kind of mock it because my wife and I will sit there and be like, I bet it's him that's going to be the one. Or like, we try to predict what's happening. It's like, did you ever watch Mystery Science Theater 3000 back in the day?
Yeah.
Right. It's exactly that. We sit there and we try and guess what's going to happen in the movie while it's going. And the other person will mockingly be like, you're ruining the movie for me. I didn't know that was happening.
So anyway, I don't want to get too far down the sidetrack, but when I hear Christmas, like there are some like hallmarks, and then there are some there. Okay. Last question, then I promise we'll move on. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
It happens during Christmas. So I'll give you that last detour and I'll answer with a detour.
Okay.
We watched a Christmas movie and I'll use that in the most loose sense of the word.
Okay.
It wasn't a bad movie. It's about a hockey player who has a bad PR image because he gets kicked out of games all the time, and a failing bookstore, and the PR agent pairs them together and magic happens.
Okay.
Except there was absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. There was never a Christmas tree. Christmas was never mentioned. There were no Christmas carols. There was none of that, right? It just happened that it was in the winter because that's when hockey happens. But
sure.
Somehow that's a Christmas movie.
Well, Tiny shares my opinion. Die Hard is absolutely a Christmas movie, and true to it, I say that Christmas has not really entered the Chalaya household unless Dr. Gruber falls from Nakatomi Plaza. That's my personal opinion.
At least it was a Christmas party, right? Like that's
right?
the point. At least it was all like Christmas was around it, even if there was a lot of explosions.
It's all around. Yeah, I mean, yes, but I mean, you have the limo driver, and he is rocking out to the most awesome Christmas rap I think I've ever heard. Anyway, there's all sorts of reasons why I personally believe it's a Christmas movie, but I just thought I'd share that and see if blood was spilled. So your process is make MKV, as is mine. He talks about MP4 or MKV. MKV if you can, MP4 if you need broader compatibility. Do you use Handbrake? Never. I never use Handbrake anymore. Handbrake was an awesome program when it came out. And early on, I really liked having a GUI to like dial in all the things. But I got to be honest with you, Steve, these days, anything I want to do, I'll just do with FFmpeg. It's easier, it's cleaner, it's more consistent. And I understand there's some nerd right now that is firing up and you're like, but Handbrake is make MK or is FFmpeg under the hood. I know that. I understand that FFmpeg powers Handbrake. I'm just saying that I think it's just cleaner just to use FFmpeg. And the more I use FFmpeg, the handier I get with it. And the handier I get with it, the more I realize there's very little it can't do. Like you can do stupid level stuff to even like cut videos if you're willing to figure out like the timestamps and stuff. It's way above my head. But
related to this question though, like why though? That's the thing. When we're in an era of like 20 terabyte hard drives, yes. I haven't done that in years. I just rip MKV,
yes.
Done.
Yes. Preach it. The only reason I can see for transcoding, and I'll be very clear, I would only do this as a second option. Like I would keep the raw rips, 100% I would. Because like you correctly pointed out, storage is cheap. And even right now, because we don't do Black Friday anymore, Steve, we do Black Month now, you can still get 30% off drives on B&H. And so I wouldn't do it that way. But the only reason that I can see for transcoding movies down is for edge cases. So, for example, my son wanted to watch videos on his Pine Tab, and he found that you can increase the smooth video playback if you size it down for the actual screen size or screen resolution for the Pine Tab. And so I think in some of those kind of situations, it maybe makes sense. But again, I wouldn't use Handbrake for that. I would just use FFmpeg. His next question is about switches. He says, actually about UniFi specifically. He says, I manage a couple of sites that have Ubiquiti access point and switches. I installed the UniFi network server on my laptop and manage each site using the one server installation, having turned on by multi-site management setting. It works well, but I have to physically be at the site to connect to the LAN for the server to see the devices. I'd been hoping to be able to remote into sites via a split tunnel open VPN and manage the Ubiquiti devices over the VPN. For some reason, the server shows the devices offline when I try to see them over a VPN connection. Short of setting up an on-site UniFi server for each site, do you have any recommendations? So, Steve, both you and I use UniFi. What would you do if you woke up in his shoes?
So I believe this has to do with the fact that it's reaching out over a default VLAN, and then when you're using a VPN, it is not getting, it is not able to scan the other end of the tunnel.
Yes,
essentially.
It's layer 2 only. Yes.
Yeah. So, yep, I'd probably do a controller in each site, because a little tiny, I don't even know. Like, I think I'm running mine on 2 gigs of RAM or something like that. A little tiny VM and a controller in the site. It's not that big of a deal.
So I have 2 options. Option 1 is if you're going to go the controller route. So if you have servers, or they already have a server or whatever, great. If they don't, I'd look at the Cloud Key. So the Cloud Key is a specific device made by Ubiquiti. It's $175, and it is the UniFi controller in a piece of hardware. So if my back was against the wall and I needed to get things in every single site, that's what I would do. Here's where that falls down. One, I've had terrible luck with the Cloud Keys. I really have. And in part of it, in working with UniFi support, I've learned that they don't do, if it loses power, it often suffers database corruption. And I'd be lying to you if I said I fully understood why that's a problem with the Cloud Key and why that isn't a problem with the regular typical UniFi server running on like a VM or something. But I can tell you that I have a lot more problems and a lot more Cloud Keys that I go to log into them and I can't get to them. And so for that reason, I've largely moved away from doing that. Or if I'm going to do that, I make sure to be real on top of backups. The second thing that, and actually what I think I would do if I were in your shoes, I would go over to ovh.com and I would set myself up a VM for $4.20 a month, because you're going to get 4 cores, 8 gigs of RAM, 75 gig disk, and then just make it, accesspoint.james.com and set inform to each one of your access points to adopt it that way. And then you can get to your controller from anywhere. Why would that not be a good idea, Steve?
Let's see. So your access points are punching out through the firewall and connecting out. I suppose if you had a way to keep that machine off the wider internet.
No, it'd be on the open internet.
Well, I would feel not so good about that. Like, talk about a target on the back, right? Because then now you're trusting the UniFi controller to protect you from malicious intrusion on the internet, or else you would then lose access to all of your machines.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Not good.
Okay. So there you have it. There's the downside to doing it that way. I will tell you, for better or for worse, that is the way that we have run every one of our clients, all connect to a cloud controller that's available on the open internet. Now, over the years, we've locked it down a little bit by way of SSH keys and whitelisting and those sorts of things. But there's a good long 10-year stretch where it was just, if you knew the password, you had access to the internet, it was yours. So either I got insanely lucky, but it is a very inexpensive way for you to be able to manage all of these things. The other part I would tell you is that if you're staying on top of updates, it is designed, I believe, Unify designed it to be able to run on the internet, because we're not the only people doing that. But Steve, would it alleviate concerns for you a little bit if it was like, okay, you only allow traffic from, the client sites, so they're the only ones that can do that, and then maybe you're VPNing into the client sites to actually make the change, or you whitelist your own IP address from the office or your house, something like that? Would that, so it's not the whole internet, it's just, specific portions of the internet?
Well, I mean, so if you allowed the announce to be anywhere, that could be okay. But like, you basically put up a firewall that says, maybe you can announce from anywhere. Then you run something like Tailscale or Nebula, or pick your thing of choice, so that your port 80 or 443 or whatever your 8443 you're listening on is only available on that. And then I would also, now I'm being super paranoid, but I would have like my Apache page in front of it, so that even before you got to the Unify page, you have the basic auth of Apache. So you've got, because you're guarding yourself then against script kiddies or anybody that's exploiting
Unify specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. So hopefully that gives you some options. And his last question is, in episode 463, Steve talked about a zero inbox method. Do you ever archive old emails outside of the email account? And if so, how do you search it? I currently have some email addresses with a large amount of emails. I don't need them to reference them, but might want to in the future. So Steve, you set something like this up for a friend of yours.
Yep. So someone that I know has, let's say, 15 years worth of client data that they have to retain by law. And so they had archived off all kinds of various EML files and dropped them in directories. But the problem with that is if you don't name the EML correctly, or you're looking for a specific attachment inside the EML and you don't know where that is, all of that is a problem. So what we ended up doing was we took those EMLs, we loaded it into Postfix, and then we pointed a project called Paperless NGX at Postfix and had it just ingest the emails with their attachments. And we had some specific reasons why we did this. I believe you can import EML files directly, but we did it specifically this way for specific reasons for this particular person. But that worked really well because it OCRs the file. It allows you to search and tag and do all kinds of wonderfulness in the future. And so that would be and is the way that I have gone for people that have that I need to archive requirement, but not necessarily keep it online, as in like keep it hot in the email provider.
So I have a small inbox limit with my email provider, and what I've chosen to do is I just dump my emails out as .emls, and I probably do it once a quarter. Maybe I stretch it to twice a year, but most of the time I need to do it before then. In fact, as I'm recording this episode, I'm looking, and my thing says it's 90% full, so it's about time to do it again. But what I do is I export them all out, and then I put them into a separate copy of Thunderbird. So it's literally a VM that lives at home, and its only function in life is for me to be able to dump copious amounts of EML files in them, and then they're organized in all the folders and all the things, so it's searchable. I can get to it, and they're all in a local thing. So I have it a couple places, right? I have that is kind of the live environment where I can go get to them. But then if anything ever happened to that VM, I have all the original emails too, just in the dump date. So, if I do it this month, it'll be December of 2025 email dump, and then I'll have them all there. And I could recreate that box by just re-importing all of the email dumps, and I have that going back to my very first email address. So I think you're on the right. On the right course. Although, Steve, it was funny in the pre-show, we were kind of talking, and when I'm like, really? You've never archived? And you're like, why would I need to? So for the most part, you don't really believe in hanging on to emails forever.
Even if I do, I have it. The level of trust that I have with the provider is more than I care to battle with. So what I mean by that, I use Proton Mail. I believe Proton Mail is not going to lose my mail. And I have such a high degree of confidence that it is not worth my time or effort to do anything to back those up.
But you've never run out of space, though.
No.
So like if you use them long, well, I guess probably not because they give you like a gig every year you're there or whatever. But presumably if you were there long enough, you could run into a thing where you would run out of space.
Maybe. I'm at 443 megs right now.
Let's look. Let's compare. So on my Proton Mail, I'm at 656 megs. Personal is less.
I mean, I'm pretty judicious with getting rid of the things that I don't need, right? Like, so I have email, like I have folders for insurance, for taxes, for real estate, for travel, shopping, and that sort of stuff. And then I have one that's just called archive. And I just grab everything from the previous year and dump it into an archive folder for that year. And I even have stuff from my Gmail import way back when I joined Proton Mail in 2018, looks like. So
hopefully that gives you some options, James. And if not, please write in, let us know. We'd love to continue to help.
From the Linux Newswire newsroom, this is the Week in Review with JT.
For the week of December 14th, 2025, here's the Linux and open source news. Firefox 146 is out. Thunderbird 146 is also out. KDE Framework's 6.12 has been released. The 6.6 version of the Cinnamon desktop is now available. The window manager Mir has had its 2.25 release. Rust has released version 1.92. In distro news, Aaron OS 2025.12 has been released. The Kali Linux team has announced the availability of Kali 2025.4. Pop! OS 24.04 LTS with Cosmic is now out. Pear OS has been relaunched. Maybach Linux has released version 2025.12. And Papermoon has announced itself as a space-grade Linux for spacecraft and space exploration. In open source security news, Rust-based 01 Flip ransomware hits Windows and Linux. And the React 2 shell vulnerability is actively being exploited to deploy Linux backdoors. In open source AI news, News Research has just released Nomos 1, an open source AI that ranks second on the notoriously brutal Putnam math exam. NVIDIA has released a new Nemotron model. Quilter's AI just designed an 843-part Linux computer that booted on the first try. Red Hat has announced that it has acquired Chatterbox Labs, a private company founded in 2011 that provides model testing and Gen AI guardrails. The Linux Foundation launches Agentic AI Group to set standards for autonomous systems. And the Mozilla Corporation has named its new CEO, who claims that Firefox will become an AI browser.
Zynthian. It is a open source, compact, self-contained music making computer that's to be used as a keyboard expander, audio effects, media processor, router, Groovebox, all the things. So this came on my radar last week after we talked about Piano Tech. And Zynthian is a community-driven project that's 100% open source, based on open hardware, completely configurable and fully hackable. And here's why I bring it to the attention of the show tonight. I want your feedback. Live at AskNoahShow.com is how you do that. And here's what I'm interested in. Specifically, I want to know, are you comfortable with software-based VSTs? So if you're not in the music world, allow me to translate the vernacular a little bit for you. There was a day where we used to come up with different synthesized voices, piano voices and different effects and drum voices and guitar voices and all the rest of it. And we put them on a box and we would sell it. And over time, we started doing sampling technologies where instead of trying to recreate the sounds, we would measure them with microphones and we would record them at, a bajillion different levels and all the things and store them and then play them back, which obviously give a much more realistic feel. The problem is those sampled sounds are very large in size. And so at the, through the 90s and, well, really all the way back through the 80s, I suppose, through the 80s, through the 90s, and through the 2000s, it had every synthesizer had its own unique sound. They weren't really focused on realism. And when we started getting into sampled sounds, they got much more real, but it was overlapping with the amount of storage power, memory, computing power, all the rest of it on these devices was not readily available. And so what happened, people started moving to computers. And the idea of software plugins, software voices, those sorts of things is what's known as our VSTs. And the entire world has moved that direction. And I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't like it because most of these companies expect you to use Windows or Mac OS And I am in neither of those boats. And I understand after doing a little bit of digging that there is wide support for the first generation of VSTs inside of Linux, and there is broadening support for Linux in the second generation of VSTs. But if you have experience in this area, I'd love to hear from you. If you have thoughts by way of, no, Noah, you're not crazy. It's really dumb that we would put all of these things in the way that we would make sound and the ability to create music. We would lock that behind some sort of proprietary software thing and put it onto a computer that requires updates and maintenance and failing parts and all the rest of it. Or if you listen to that and say, what is he talking about? That's ridiculous. All the synthesizer was to begin with was a computer. It was just a very primitive computer. Now they're more powerful. And so it makes perfect sense that everything would become software based. And if we're going to be in the latter, that's where I think Zynthian comes into play, because it's a computer that is designed to do this. It comes pre-configured with various different effects and various different voices, but you can also add even the proprietary ones in it. It's just a dedicated piece of hardware, a dedicated computer that you can run all of this stuff on. And OBT dubs, it's open source. So you can rebuild it from scratch. You can do whatever it is you need to do. Because the whole thing is open source. So let me know, live@asknoahshow.com. David writes in and says, my wife refuses to even try Bazite. It only wants to use half of the eaten fruits. Our son sometimes will use the Bazite laptop just to play games, but it isn't a 100% guarantee, especially with the blue screen of death on Windows. But generally, he avoids it. Now for Nextcloud, image, mapping, OnlyOffice, Mindtest servers, AI servers, are all running in our home, but I have 0 others using them. I guess when I pass on, they'll never see any of the family photos I have only on the server. They're not even willing to try the services or learn how to log into our new family password manager. So Steve, this comes to us from a very frustrated nerd. He really wants to help his family get started with self-hosting, but they're not having it. And so if you don't mind, how does that work in the Evans household?
So I have a wife that is willing to engage me in what my career is. And so that is, she is a wonderfully patient woman. The way that it works here is I just put something out there and I watch for pain points. I don't generally just install something to install it. I watch for pain points. Mm-hmm. The one exception was image, and we've well documented how that did not go over here. But generally speaking, I watch and listen for complaints about whatever it is that they're doing, and then I try and fix that. And so when I implement a fix, that generally means that they're going to end up using that. Password manager is a good example. She wanted passwords for the things that I have access to. Well, I'm using Bitwarden. You'll have to join the Bitwarden family so that I can share those with you. Those sorts of things. And it's not necessarily adversarial. It's just like, this is where I'm established in doing this. If you would like to come play with me, you can do so. It's same thing with Jellyfin, right? Like, you want to watch your shows that like the Christmas movies that we rip every year. This is where they're located. And that's just how it is.
So I'm a bit of a rascal here, and I admit that, but I intentionally make the path for what I think is a responsible use of technology easy, and I intentionally make the path for what I think is an irresponsible use of technology not easy. And I recognize that there are some of you that are going to hear that and go, man, he's a rascally little rabbit. And you're not wrong. I admit that. It's a character fault. I admit. But I believe strongly that value-driven decisions about technology is not a bad thing. I don't necessarily subscribe to this idea that it's just a tool or it's just code or whatever. So I think that it is perfectly appropriate. In fact, I would go as far as to say I think it's responsible stewardship to approach those things with value-driven decisions. And so when we decide on a technology at the Chalaya household, typically I'll look at it from a number of different angles, try a number of different things, and then land on and say, okay, here's what I think we're going to do and how I think we're going to do that. And largely what has worked really well for me is if I say, here's boat A, and I'm willing to support boat A, and I will absolutely usher you through all of the problems with boat A. And if you have any questions, I'm going to help you with those. And if you have any problems, we're going to address them and we're going to fix them. I find I get a lot more out of that then just use whatever you want, and then good luck or whatever. And then find myself beating my head against the wall to try to accommodate something. I think if I'm reading a bit between the lines in your email, David, I think what I'm reading is that there isn't a plant there to water because your family is perfectly happy to live inside of the half-eaten fruit. And if that's the boat you find yourself in, I would tell you it's probably just a exercise in frustration trying to get them onto the other side of the fence. So I don't know that I would expend a tremendous amount of energy saying, try the Bazite laptop, try this game, check out Image, check out OnlyOffice, check out those things. I would borrow a little bit from Steve's methodology to say, well, you want to look at pictures? Oh, those are in Image. You want to see what my calendar is or what my thing is? That's in Nextcloud. You want to play a game with me? I'm playing Minecraft on my Minecraft server. You want a question or a thing? I have my AI server running in our home. And I would just continually try to look for opportunities to leverage those things, or to say, hey, here would be a reason to use it, and make that as welcoming as a doormat as humanly possible. And then, and again, I understand that there's a risk of coming off a little rascally here to say this, but I would pull back from like, hey, your half-eaten fruit thing doesn't work. Sorry, it's not my problem. Oh, geez, the IP address changes because it changes the MAC address constantly as a privacy. Oh, that really sucks. I guess it's not going to work really well. And Steve, there have been absolutely times where you just say, like, yeah, I'm not going to. How did you phrase it? That's not something I'm going to pay bandwidth for. And so if it's a value thing that doesn't align with your values, you say, I'm just not going to pay for the bandwidth for that thing. And if you want to go find internet elsewhere to do that, more power to you.
So some of that boils down to it's a very old notion, but I still really subscribe to it. I think I've been consistent here. Is like, if I draw a living from the thing, I should be backing that thing. And so in this case, I draw a living from open source. Therefore, this is the path that I'm going to take, right? Mm-hmm. I've never stopped my wife from running Windows, but like you, it's kind of the hybrid of like, I don't know what I'm doing over there. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't work, I will take a swing at it. Being the dutiful husband that I am, I will absolutely sit down and swear at this thing the whole time I'm working on it. Mm-hmm. And maybe I can coax it to life, but I will hit a point where I can't do anything, and then I'm just going to walk away from it.
You're a better husband than I, because I don't even look at it.
Well, we just have different fights that we pick, right? That's but the whole, I support this this operating system, or you play from a plethora. She's running Fedora on her little touchscreen laptop, and she runs Arch on the desktop, and whatever one she picks, that's fine. I'll figure out how to support it. But it goes back to, she's in agreement with the statement that, this is where I make my money, right? Yeah. And we're going to just feed that ecosystem because it pays our bills.
Yeah. That's a really good approach from the standpoint that it should be relatable, right? How do you think food got on that table? How do you think the $100 leggings got into the closet, kind of a thing? It does. It makes a really good point. So hopefully that helps you. I'm going to continue to chew on it. I'll be honest with you. I think there's a better answer. I think we either just need to hear it from people that listen from the show, or Steve and I just need to chew on it a little bit. So we'll keep thinking it, and perhaps we'll follow up with you in the future. And if that helped, let us know. If that didn't help, let us know faster. Music in our ears means we're out of time. I thank you for joining us. We record the show every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Central, AskNoahShow.com. We're back next Tuesday. Check everything out at podcast.asknoahshow.com. Have a good week.